Welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen, and we continue on with Sci-Fi Week. Very special guest, Mr. Alan Flyng, of course, from the Star Wars franchise. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Very nice to meet with you and your listeners. Hello.
Same here. It's a pleasure to have you here, and the fans are certainly looking forward to this. A nice little deep dive into your career, everything Star Wars and beyond. So, rewinding to the very beginning, growing up, what were some of your favorite films? Did anything come to mind? Some of the first films that you became a fan of?
Oh, I don't know. I wasn't really a huge film fan. As a child, we had one cinema which we had to cycle to, which was quite a long way away for small children, that is. And we were only allowed to go in and see performances on a Saturday morning, which cost 6 old pence, 2.5 new pence, or around about 3 cents to get into. And you had very little choice. So I do remember the Douglas Bader story. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen that film.
No.
Black and white from the Second World War. And it's about a particular hero, a real life story of a hero fighter, Spitfire pilot fighter, who was shot down after having lost one of his legs, was shot down and recovered, taken to a German hospital, lost his other leg, and they had to fly in from Britain, tin legs for him. And he got up and he escaped. Came all the way back to England, and he ended up in the Battle of Britain as one of the major commanders of the battle, and he survived right through to the end of the war and had a happy family life. But the film is wonderful, especially for kids, in spite of all the boom, bang, bang and explosions and all the rest of it. We loved all that. But it also meant that because there was a shortage of decent films to see, we could go maybe 10 weeks on the trot and see the same film again and again and again. Everybody stood up. We all knew the words. It was a bit like the Rocky Horror Show gone mad with kids.
Right.
So that's always been a favourite film of mine, surprisingly enough, and I'll still take the time to watch it if it comes on TV. Other films, I loved musicals. I wasn't a great adventure film sort of person. I liked silly films. I liked stupid films, really. And I liked cartoons, especially liked cartoons. The nuttier, the better. But otherwise, as a child growing up, I didn't have a huge variety of taste or opportunity to see films.
And at what point did you decide, you know what, this is maybe something I'm going to give a shot myself? And when did you first get involved, get your foot in the door?
Oh, my goodness. It came after I had finally left school and college, and I was 21 years old. 21. And I was living in my first relationship with somebody, and we decided to see if we could get ourselves into a little bit of extra work. And we had the same as he had in LA, or at least called the same, Central Casting. And we registered for Central Casting through the union that unionized anybody that was going to be on film. And it all started from there. And then all of a sudden, because I was touching 6 foot and I was well built and slim, I was a policeman for every film that I needed a policeman. All the time I was cast as a policeman. Then I got cast as soldiers and anything else that seemed a bit wacky. So I appeared in a really, really wide variety of absolutely crappy films, to say the very least. Most of which are not at all memorable, but Amongst those that I did appear in as an extra, there was Victor Victoria, where I was a dancer in the gay club. Me, 6 foot me, dancing in a rah-rah dress with fringes, curly bangs, and makeup, and my partner was 4.5 inches shorter than me and dressed in a evening tux. And we had to dance in front of James Garner and Julie Andrews. And I do remember the director saying, "Stop, stop." He was a bit of a tyrant. He could swear like a trooper, and Julie could swear even worse, much, much worse. And he said, "Who the fuck dressed this guy?" And nobody spoke out. I said, "Well, it's just what I was put into in wardrobe. Don't you like it?" He said, "I love it, but it'll look better on a broad." I said, "Well, sorry about that." So he sent me off to get changed. So I came back in a tuxedo, and we recorded it both ways. And so I do actually appear dancing across the front of the scene with my partner down here somewhere in a tight embrace, 1920s style, and then dancing back in a different costume.
That's fun.
I did it twice, literally doing the same action in the same trough in front of them. So I remember that one. Other films, my God, there were so many. Flash Gordon. I was a flying idiot on wires.
What was that experience like?
Very uncomfortable, to be honest with you. The harnesses were not exactly well fitted. They were put on, and we were basically semi-naked in our costumes. So we had these huge wings applied to our backs, which we had to with our arms flap. And we had to be flying across the scene, following Brian Blessed, screaming at the top of his voice, "This way, boys, this way!" And anyway, we did that for about 2 days. And then I appeared in the court of whoever it was, who was the oh God, I can't even remember the characters now. It's so many years ago. You realise this? The baddie. Let's just call him the baddie. Yes, Swedish or German he was. And so I was tracing around each day, going into a different costume in a different position for a different shot. So my face must have been so nondescript that nobody was going to notice, except everybody did. And there was that, and there were lots and lots of war films I was in. And I don't know which end of the gun is the right one to point out. But I was always doing these sorts of things, and I appeared in a TV series, which was headed by Anthony Andrews, the actor, and it was all about defusing Second World War bombs. And I was in a bomb squad, jumping in and out of trenches, muddy trenches, and defusing these bombs, which were polystyrene mostly, with a wooden cap on. I do remember that, but that introduced me to Anthony Andrews. We got to be quite friendly. So in later years, when I was in the costume side of everything, that was even after I was doing acting as such, proper acting. Even after that, I ended up working with him a few times on other films. So I had all sorts of strange introductory roads into the business. But eventually, I was helping out on several productions with the costume department, because I knew people in the costume department. I had training, and eventually I got my City and Guild exam, which is the professional examination, as a theatrical tailor, which I earned at the Royal National Theatre in London. And I came out of there and straight into a film, working on the costume side, which was a film with, goodness gracious me, I'll have to think about that one because I can't remember now. Anyway, that led to one film after another, and so I stayed doing that until I'd participated in the wardrobe, or as an assistant designer, or as a costume designer, eventually, in 47 features.
Wow.
So there's an awful lot of them. If you go on IMDb, you can
That's
sit there
impressive.
bored for hours.
Yeah, that's very
But
impressive.
I also did a lot of acting in between, so it was
So,
fun.
on the costume and wardrobe side of things,
Yeah,
later on in your career, you were in Split Second in 1992,
yes.
Age of Heroes 2011. Being on that side of things, what does a day look like for you? What's your duties there?
Well, you've got to bear in mind that apart from the person, if you're working in a studio, apart from the person who comes in to literally unlock and open up the stages, the wardrobe department is the first set of people that come in. So we would often be in on a largish production. We'd be in by 4:30 in the morning and getting the costumes lined up and all the principal costumes up into the changing rooms, etc. All their changes lined up for the rest of the day and special effects stuff fitted and all of that, all by around about 7 o'clock, ready for turning over, usually about 7:30, and then we'd be there right through shooting, normally until about 6:30 in the evening, if we weren't going on to overtime, and then we had to de-rig everybody, get them out of costume, wash everything, always wash on the same night in those days. They all had to be pressed, washed, pressed, and set up ready for the next day's shooting. So it was usually an 18, sometimes 20-hour day. In those days, 6 days a week. And later it became 7 days a week, which is when I sort of started chucking it in. I just was so exhausted, so exhausted. I did so many huge, huge films later in my career, and I was in charge of them for the costume side of it, either in design or assistant designer or supervisor, whatever it was that needed to be done. And I remember on Winds of War and War and Remembrance, I was there on War and Remembrance. I'm credited, I think, as head of costume, London base. Well, that sounds like not too much work, but in actual fact, there were up to 26 units shooting worldwide at the same time with all the same principals that are shot most of the principal storyline in English studios, and they were flying backwards and forwards, and therefore their costumes had to be flying all over the world, or be on roads, in trucks, on ships, because we had the reserve fleet from America in the Pacific, which we were also servicing costumes for, period costumes, not only just for the actors, but all the sailors on all the ships,
Uh,
and the submarines, everything. And so I had books, so like this deep books just of where things were and where they were traveling to and what time they were coming off and going to somewhere else. And we got to show how ridiculous things could get. We got to one stage where everything seemed to go slightly wrong. And we had dear old Sir John Gielgud, wonderful old actor, who had appeared from the beginning of the film in a pinstripe suit. And they decided he looked great in a pinstripe suit. So could he always wear a pinstripe suit? And we were covering 25 years of his life, basically. So he had to
yeah,
keep on reappearing in different suits. Did he? Hell. We couldn't get them made. We couldn't afford them. I couldn't always find them to hire. So I hired out from, I think it was Angels and Bermans in London, Costume House, 10 suits in black and grey mixture. And I had tailor's chalk pencils, which I could sharpen, and I would literally find out what the shots were that were needed, where they were cutting, so you could see how much of the suit was being seen if it wasn't the full thing. And I would spend hours with a ruler drawing in pencil lines, pinstripes
ah,
that were going to be to camera. And then I'd be brushing them off, and then I'd be remeasuring for another suit that wasn't available, maybe destroyed,
right.
or somewhere else in the world, and get our poor man back on camera again. He thought it was very, very funny. He said, he said, which iteration of my suit am I wearing today? I said, I can't really remember, but it'll be on your back. You can look then.
Right.
And he was a sweet man. He put up with all of it. He did far better with it than we did.
So these pieces of wardrobe, when they're not in transit to you
Mm.
at the filming, where are they kept?
Well, it depends, because I mean, not all productions are studio based. Many of them are on the road or on location or abroad, filmed entirely abroad quite often. And so it's up to me to find a building and tell the production how much it's going to cost and hire it, being part of my budget, and then get all the rails sorted out, whether they need to come out from England or whether I can buy locals or have others made in wood or bamboo, wherever I am in the world, get them produced and then get the costumes up and get them sorted. And that would be how it went all the time. And I had huge Pantechnicon, like house removal vans, enormous, that were completely railed out on three
Wow.
levels. And everything got packed into those to be moved. So it was always always a worry that there might be a derailment somewhere and that this thing would end up in a ditch somewhere and they couldn't get at it. It's happened a few times, and we'd turn up with trucks, literally pulling all the costumes off, throwing them in the back, drive them on to where we need it, and we'd start sorting them as they arrived. Um, yeah, it was hard work, believe me, really, really hard work. And
Two
of course, the
thousands.
war films were the hardest.
Yeah. Were there a lot of? Was there an array of outfits and costumes in the war films?
Yes, I mean, most of them you could hire. Most of them you could hire. I mean, when we were doing Shining Through with Melanie Griffith and um, Douglas, what's his name? Son of, Kirk Douglas's son. I can't remember his first name now. There have been a lot of actors going under the river, under the bridge. We ended up in Berlin, and we were there before the wall came down. So I was told that I was going to have a wardrobe set up in a huge gymnasium complex, which was on the other side of the Brandenburg Gate in East Berlin. And I had to be escorted everywhere with my team by East German soldiers or Russian soldiers with Kalashnikovs guarding us
Wow.
backwards and forwards, because we were, at that time, we were hoteled in West Berlin, and it became too difficult, so we all moved over to East Berlin, and things just got more and more complicated the whole time. But because there was so much damage in East Berlin still, before the Brandenburg Gate opened up for the people from the West to come in, there were whole streets and neighborhoods that were still in pretty bad condition from the Second World War. Lots of bombed buildings, ruins, bombs still being found all the time. And so it came to pass that we had certain scenes where they wanted air raids. And so we had Melanie Griffith and two children in hand, and several other members of the cast running down these streets as real bombers came overhead, dropped dummy bombs, but the buildings on either side of the street were mined and exploded and fell down as she ran through them with the children.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite a
Exactly.
production.
It was a huge production, but not the biggest. But it's just an example of how much detail they go into, and they expect us to keep up with it. And
Right.
so a lot of the costumes for that, those scenes, were just local costumes, but they were real costumes that were left by people who had fled to the West. And so all the clothes were collected up and they were held onto by the local opera house, who had a massive collection. So we hired a lot of those, real costumes, torn costumes, bloodied costumes. And then we had an enormous scene in Leipzig, which was still in East Germany at that time, where we had, I think it was 19 steam trains in the station. It was an end
Wow.
station. So they were all fired up. They were all chugging black smoke and raining soot on everything and everybody. And the scene was supposed to be of German soldiers being brought back from the front. So we had, I think, about 1,000 men who were dressed as wounded or on stretchers or being carried, being replaced by another 4,000 who were queuing to get on the trains to go back out to the front. And yeah, Douglas Jr., I still can't remember his first name, isn't it ridiculous?
Oh, Michael Douglas?
Michael
Yeah.
Douglas, that's right. So Michael Douglas and Gielgud, Melanie Griffith, and various other actors were all involved in these scenes, and their costumes were getting covered completely with black soot the whole time.
Oh.
And it just got obscenely difficult, really difficult to make them look the same from one scene or one cut to another. And then in the middle of it, the funniest things happened. So John Gielgud was a famous gay actor of vintage. He was in his 90s by the time we were filming together. I'd worked with him many times before, but 90s. So they gave him to me to look after. Well, you couldn't look after this man because he was he would get up on his feet and totter. Didn't matter where he was, what the scene was. If he was in it or not, he would totter. And so I had one of those studio chairs, fold-down studio chairs, for him with his name on it. And I said, well, Sir John, where would you like your chair set up? You can't be too close to the action. We need to put you to one side. He said, oh, let me have a look, dear boy. And he said, what's going on over there? And I said, oh, there's the gentleman's toilet. He said, there's an awful lot of soldiers going in and out of there. I'd like to sit outside there. Are you sure? He said, oh, yes, I won't be naughty, I promise. And so I took his chair over and sat him down. He sat there with an enormous fox fur collar on and this fedora hat. And there's literally hundreds of soldiers, extras, were going in and coming out the whole day. He sat there the whole day going, good afternoon, to every single one he could.
Oh,
And he ended up with an enormous circle of Germans around him who didn't speak a word of English. I was just fascinated by this old queen in furs. So I had to go and rescue him occasionally and pull him out and say, you're on.
Right.
I need to get you onto a train. Oh, where are we going? I said, Leipzig. Oh, aren't we in Leipzig? I said, yes, we're going to Leipzig station. It's just over there. Oh, okay, yes, let's go. And off we go, tottering away. So these are all stupid things that I got shoved on me all the time.
Yeah,
After
experiences.
Actors, keep them out of trouble, which was always very difficult, especially if they weren't used to filming abroad. And cover up their misdemeanors and keep them happy.
And when it comes to the costumes, when you're done filming, where do these costumes go? Are they discarded or are they saved?
Oh, no, they're all saved. They're all saved. I've never, ever sent any costumes to be destroyed. It does happen on some films, very unenlightened films, because there's not a piece of costume that's been made, that's been worn on camera, that isn't useful to somebody else, especially if it's period, or especially if it's a uniform, or if you're doing something really interesting, like a medieval film. I did Henry V, the film with Branagh, and I did Richard III, set in the 1930s with Ian McKellen. War films were stock in trade. I hated war films, but I still got them all the time because there was so much organisation, and that was my forte.
Any memories
And
of Ian
all those
McKellen?
costumes have been kept.
Oh, any memories working with Ian McKellen?
Oh, well, in those days, he was producing, directing, and rewriting Shakespeare all by himself.
Wow.
Yes, and he insisted that he had to have a hump on his back, the same as the mythical. So we thought Richard III. However, since his body has been found and his post-mortem has properly been done, he did actually have a hump on his back. So we made a hump for him, and his uniforms were tailored to go over his hump. And he just became rather difficult to look after, because getting in and out of this costume with a hump and everything else was very, very exhausting for him with all his other responsibilities he was keeping on. I mean, he had another actor with him who was a great friend from the Royal Shakespeare Company, whom he cast as his Batman, looking after him in storyline, as it were. But unfortunately, Bill Patterson, bless his heart, was forced to be the Batman in real life as well. So when Ian went back to his trailer, there his co-actor would be ready to undress him, get him ready for his dinner, get his dinner from the food trailers or whatever, and then at the end of the day, take his costume off, hang it up and bring it back to the wardrobe. He also had to be in first thing in the morning to dress before Ian turned up so that he could be in costume, because Ian would go straight into character and stay in character the entire day. Poor Bill was like, like had a thumbtack through the top of his head. He had to do exactly what he was told to do. So, yes, I remember all of that going on, and Ian shouting at one of my assistants. He couldn't bear him because he had a northern accent, which is ridiculous because Ian comes from the north. But in this case, he was speaking with an English accent, an old English accent. But he couldn't stand speaking to the dresser that I had assigned to him, who was perfectly good, very good, in fact. So I had to take him off that job, take it on myself, and then Bill had to be co-opted into it because I had other responsibilities other than just dressing Ian McKellen. And sometimes I had to go and say, now, look here, you are being unreasonable, you are being an asshole, and I will tell you when you're being an asshole, and then you've got to think before you reply. He said, "You're very, very forward." I said, "Yes, as I was at the Royal National Theatre." "Oh, that was you, was it?" I said, "Yes, that was me." I said, oh, yes, I remember. "All right, I promise, I promise." And he was very good. He was very good.
That's good to
But
hear.
I had this habit of taking actors and saying, "Now, don't throw your costumes on the floor in the night so you can get away quickly. You need to pick them up and put them on a hanger. What do you do with your clothes when you get home? Does your mother live with you to hang up your costume or clothes when you take them off? Or do you put them somewhere neatly or fold them, or do you just hang them up ready for the next time you need to wear them?" I said, okay. And I do not leave your underpants. I do not wash underpants. You can wear your own underpants to work and you can take them home with you and wash them because I'm not doing it.
So you were a bit of on top of all of your duties and everything on these productions, a bit of a caretaker here and there.
Well, I was cast in that role, they thought, but I wasn't like that. I was more like a trainer who was telling them what they should and shouldn't do. And sometimes they appreciated it. Sometimes we got on incredibly well. And some actors who went on to be incredibly famous still kept asking me to come do films with them, to work with them personally, which I always had to say no to. Except Michael Douglas, I did do another film with him. But most of the time, I just said, that most of you have been to college or university or you've been to a drama school and you've done summer stock, you've learnt your trade, hopefully well enough that you're going to perform well. And you're going to be cast further along the line, but you need to learn stagecraft from behind the scenes. Because if you don't appreciate that, you're just going to be treated as an asshole.
Yeah.
Instead of you treating everybody else as an asshole.
Right.
And it worked. It invariably worked, except with one or two actors who were a bit in fact, very difficult. But most of the time I was like, Meg Ryan I couldn't get on with. Just could not go on with the woman.
Any
Take her
particular
costumes.
memories with Julie Andrews?
Only her swearing and swearing and swearing. She called everything an effing C. And somebody over there didn't get her a cup of tea when she wanted one. "He's nothing but a cunt." I can't bear people like that. They need to be professional like me. And say, "Oh, fucking yes, just like you." And say, "No, all right, maybe I'm a little bit over the top." She was very, very funny, very friendly most of the time. But she was put on by her husband, who was a very, very strict taskmaster, who was directing her. Not an easy combination, to be honest. But she was gorgeous, really gorgeous to work with. And she always knew her words. every day. And it was an enormous script that we were working with her on. And she knew all her words always, never needed to be rehearsed, because he would rehearse her all bloody night at home and then in the car on the way to the studio. So she had it all filed away in her head, very, very organized in her mind. But she did swear like a trooper.
So you were also attached to Garfield, which was Tale of the Two Kitties, and that was in
It is.
2006.
That's right. Well, that was a last minute thing, really, real the last minute thing. I had a phone call saying that they were in a bit of a problem. Could I travel from London to York, which is about 170 miles or so? And I said, when? They said, now. I said, really? I said, yes. What do you need me for? We can't tell you. We'll tell you when you get here, but to get here as quick as you possibly can. And so I drove straight up to York, a suitcase in the car. I didn't know how many days I might be there or weeks. And I went in and saw the designer. She said, I've got terrible problems. I said, well, let's start at the beginning. What do you want me to do about these things? She said, well, you're trained as a tailor. I said, yes. Do you do uniforms as well? I said, yes. I said, oh, but do you do period costume? I said, yes. So what do you need? So, well, we've had a new casting. It's just come in. I said, yes. And he's arriving by helicopter in about 2.5 hours? I said, yes. He's working tomorrow morning, and it's Billy Connolly, and he's not been fitted for a single costume because he's a last minute. So I said, well, you go run around and find whatever you can that will fit him. She went off and bought suits galore and all sorts of things. And they were all the wrong sizes. And so he arrived. I took him into a trailer, introduced myself to him, and we had a little bit of a back chat around things that we had in common and where he lived up in Scotland. I knew it very, very well, very near the Balmoral estate of the Queen. And I talked to him about some of the hunting, shooting, fishing tailors up there. He said, oh, yes, I go to this one. I said, well, that's interesting. Yes, I've been there. I know them. Yes, I know that cutter. Yes. Oh, you do? I said, yes. So let's get down to what we need to do. He said, yes, okay. I said, well, they're going to be bringing stuff in as it's being bought, and we're going to try them on and see how we get on. And then the designer will come in each time you've got something on and say yes or no. So he said, this is not going to be easy. I said, no, because I shall be doing this all through the night until I've got your costumes all sorted out. I said, Okay, so we did that. We tried one suit on, a hunting tartan, which is awful. No, throw that out the window. Then we had tweeds, hunting tweeds with huge baggy trousers and God knows what else. And so I said, oh, yeah, I like this. I said, yes, the trouble is it's about 4 sizes too big for you, Billy. So he said, what are we going to do? I said, well, hold on, do you see this? It's called an unpicker. It's like a hook, and it's a little bit sharp, and I go into the seam, and I go, and then I rip the arm off. You go, oh, fuck! I said, and then I do the same on the other side. He said, oh, yeah. And then I start looking at the seams, and I rip those out, and it's all hanging in panels, and I start pinning it and marking it with a marking pencil. Oh, he said, you're not going to stick that in me. I said, not unless you don't stand still. So we got this done, and I had 5 different suits remade for him that night. Did them all myself. Then they told me that a principal boy who was part of the story, I really never understood quite what he was doing because I'd never read the script. But they bought him a suit, and he was supposed to be jumping into a car and driving off in it. And they said, we want him to wear this suit. I said, okay. And the suit was a sort of 46 chest. And the boy arrived, and he was a 36-inch chest. Oh. So I ripped that into pieces and cobbled it all back together again so he could jump in the car and see him from the back and drive off. And did all of that. And then I was getting to the end, and Billy was coming back from the hotel after having had a nice night's sleep to try it all on again and get ready for the first scene. And as he was changing, I looked down at his feet. Most unusual. I just looked down at his feet. I said, those are really interesting socks. He said, they're not socks. I'm not wearing socks. I said, but you've got a floral garland going over the top of your foot. He said, oh, yes, yes. Well, Pamela, his wife, she bought him a pair of slippers because he never wore slippers in the house, and she wanted him to wear slippers. So she got him a really expensive pair of embroidered slippers. He
Oh,
hated them. So he went off to a tattoo parlor, showed them the slippers, put them on, they took some photos, and then they tattooed the floral garlands onto his feet.
oh wow.
So for apparently a couple of years, she never noticed that he wasn't wearing socks. And
That's taking it to the extreme.
totally. And we got on really, really well. I mean, I just roared with laughter. So don't tell me anymore. He said, oh, I can tell you all sorts of things. I said, I know, I'm a great fan of you, but face to face, and I've got all these things to do. No, don't start me off. But we got on really, really well. And similarly, I had all these soldiers who were supposed to be in London standing outside Buckingham Palace, which we shot in Greenwich, of all places, outside of London. And all the soldiers that they had cast were sort of 5'8" with a 40-inch chest. And all these grenadiers' uniforms that they had hired from Angels and Bowmans, which is the biggest, maybe the biggest in the world, actually, but certainly the biggest in Britain and Europe, were all for sort of 6'4"
Oh wow.
men. And so they had these enormous cuffs with gold lace, as it's called, which is actually embroidered um, brocades and all sorts of things sewn onto them. So I had to take the arms off, shorten the arms without cutting them, just set them further inside and get them to the right size and length so that they can actually stand outside Buckingham Palace looking correct. And then after we'd done the scene, I had to take them all apart, put them back together again to be returned to the costume house.
Wow.
So stupid things like that happen to me all the time. But you just got to be swift on your feet and swift with the needle. And I'm a demon on a sewing machine. So it was fine. It was fine. But then I've been on films where I've had to set up workrooms. And we've had to make every single costume for every single person, including all the extras. We had to make them wherever we were set up. And I did a film called Clandestine Marriage, which was a wonderful film with Joan Collins in it and Tim Spall and various others, set in the 1780s. And so we were making court gowns, gentlemen's suits, nouveau riche suits, faded splendor suits, everything, and
Wow.
all the extras. And we made them all in a barn in the house that we were working at, which was a house in the West Country of England that had no electricity. It never had, and it still didn't have any electricity.
Wow.
Yes, so sewing machines would turn like that if they weren't treadle machines,
Yeah.
thumping away like this and things going up and down. But otherwise, if you had an electric sewing machine with no electricity and no electric transformers anywhere near the house because of the sound they made, you literally just have to turn the thing by hand and just do one stitch after another to get it all done. But it looked absolutely fabulous, wonderful.
And you became a part of the Empire Strikes Back, of course, which
Yes.
go on to be obviously one of the greatest franchises of all time. Cold Assault Stormtrooper on Hoth. What was that experience like in being on that set?
Well, the Cold Assault Trooper, I was in studios, which was Elstree Studio, and everything that I did was indoors. All the sets were indoors, and they were built of hardboard and plywood, and they were then sprayed with spray foam and glitter, and God knows what else was added to them. At the time, they didn't have snow for the floor, so they used foam, which stuck to everything and worked its way up your leg. And the lighting was arc lighting in those days. So it's right at the end of arc lighting before cold lighting came in. And so we were under lights and in temperatures going up over 120 Fahrenheit,
Wow.
sweating
That's
like
impressive.
pigs. It was the same when I was a stormtrooper. It was exactly the same in Elstree, all set up in stage. And then once we were in those costumes, they locked us into the stage so we couldn't get out. And there were no toilets inside. So you
Oh,
just had to, if you couldn't hold on, you had to pee and pee into your boots.
wow. I did not know that.
Oh, yes, it was very uncomfortable, but you were in them for so many hours of the day, they didn't dare undo the doors until they had to let us out to go and eat something, stinking of whatever, because they needed the temperature to be over 110 Fahrenheit so that the lenses of the cameras didn't steam up.
Gotcha.
At 110, they went clear again. So everything had to stay that temperature and above. So we're working under, once again, these tungsten lights. It was incredibly hot, incredibly uncomfortable, and very, very dangerous because we had no safety railings on that set
Wow.
that we were mainly working on. And there were quite a few of us. We were moved around as needed. One guy was moved after a reset of the camera so that he was it could be cut together that it looked like he was in the same position as he was before, but they'd actually moved the cameras. And so they kept asking him to take a step back, step back, step back, and he walked straight off the back and fell, I don't know, 16, 18 feet onto concrete in a
Oh my gosh.
stormtrooper outfit. Yes, they took him to hospital, but he came back just with a few scratches and a costume that was smashed to smithereens. And amongst my photos you'll find on the web, there is a photo of me being fitted for an Imperial trooper officer in black.
Yes.
It was actually for the Death Star, so I was told at the time. And I was being fitted in a side room off of the main wardrobe. And if you look at that photo, you'll see behind me on this side a long, long shelf full of black helmets, which were all Darth Vader helmets, because he kept smashing them. He kept walking into walls, walking into stanchions of railing and God knows what else, tripping over, going smack down on his face, and they were picking him up all the time. And they had to have lots and lots of this stuff on. It got to the stage where he was actually a danger to himself, um, Dave, and they sent his dresser, who was a wonderful, wonderful character in the film business. He never worked as anything but as a dresser, who dressed in cashmere with a bow tie and a pork pie hat, and was known to everybody as Mother, because he used to take his actors and he would mother them and look after them. And that's exactly what Dave needed. Big, tough Dave needed Mother to look after him. And they sent Mother off to the local railway station to see if he could borrow a porter's trolley. Stand-up ones that you just put the stuff on, you pull it down and you wheel it forward. And he got the loan of one of those and brought it to the studio, and that stayed through 3 films. And Dave used to travel on it from his dressing room onto the set,
Oh.
leaning back on this trolley. And his lovely, lovely dresser, Mother, John Birkinshaw, his name was, used to say, make way, Daft Ada coming through, which used to absolutely piss Dave off immensely until finally he started to laugh at it. He said, "Oh, be careful, here comes Daft Ada coming through." And John would be at the back saying, "Don't overact there, don't overact here." Get him on set, and he'd wheel him between all the cables and the stanchions and the scaffolding and everything else that's going on, so he could get him to a stage where he was safe. And then he could take his helmet off because nobody in the public knew who Darth Vader was. Darth Vader was. So he had to stay helmeted the whole time when any member of the public could see him. Stupid things like that happen that cheered up the set sometimes, because sometimes it could be incredibly boring.
Right. Long periods of time.
Long periods of time doing absolutely nothing, or more prosaically, as we say in English, sod all. We're doing absolutely sod all. So we're doing nothing at all except just standing there trying to look decorative, or trying to look as if we weren't being strangled by this plastic around our necks.
And the very talented Brian Muir was the creator of the Darth Vader helmet and the Stormtrooper, the iconic helmets. Any interactions with him over the years?
Oh well, since those days, yes, I've met up with him many conventions. He and his wife, I know them very well. They're very lovely people, and I mean, he's made a huge career out of sculpting. He used to do public sculpting too, huge, enormous coats of arms to go over the tops of places like courthouses or municipal buildings. He did all sorts of things. A very talented man. He could sculpt model clay as well as sculpt polystyrene. You could sculpt anything, basically.
Yeah.
And always really quite lovely about it. Very nice.
And famously as well, you were in Empire Strikes Back. You also were in the carbon freezing chamber. So in Cloud City, what did that set look like in person? How extravagant was it, or was it quite small?
No, it was huge.
Yeah.
It was absolutely huge. I haven't got them here, unfortunately. There are pictures on the net associated with me. You'll find them. If you find photos of me, you'll find also this other one of that particular set. It was enormous. It took up an entire stage, and stages in those days weren't tiny. They were really massive. And this is one I'm talking about, where everything was built on scaffolding, literally scaffolding everywhere, poles sticking out, ready to lance you in the eye or whatever, catch you, trip you up. And then there are all these stairs banked up on either side. And we had to negotiate all of these all the time with live steam venting directly up into our costumes. Because every 2 feet or so, there was a nozzle, and they pumped boiling water throughout the entire set, which is why it got to that temperature, as I've already mentioned. And that was venting all the time straight up into our costumes, which is why we sweated so much. Which, even if you peed yourself and it ran down back into your boots, by the end of the day, you take your boots off and they were more or less empty, because it had all just evaporated, but you stank like a hyena. And it wasn't very nice, because they didn't offer us showers, and we had to go home in trains back to London.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yes. They didn't know
And
what we were doing,
was
but they
actually made
recognized
of?
us.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said they didn't know what we were doing, but they recognized us by the smell.
Yeah. I was just
So
saying the Stormtrooper outfit. What was it actually made out of?
it was made of incredibly thin, the actual armor, incredibly thin plastic, which was molded in some of the very first vac forms, some in Shepperton, some outside the studios altogether. And they were really difficult things, because they were the whole outfit, one entire outfit, including helmet and all the greaves and everything else that went with it, was all done on one single sheet, one enormous single sheet, and it was really thin. I mean, really thin. And these sheets were delivered to the wardrobe department, which were little old men and ladies who'd been in wardrobe departments since the 1920s, told to get their best dressmaking scissors out and cut out all the pieces. And of course, they
Wow.
couldn't. They couldn't cut plastic with these beautiful antique scissors. So they'd do everything in straight lines, which meant when I was putting on stuff that they'd cut out, every single part had a sharp point, and it stuck into you all the time. Or they stick into the back of your knees,
Oh,
or under your arms, or into the elbows, or the wrists, everywhere. You just had these pointed, sharp things. And eventually they learned if you've got a soldering iron, you could run a soldering iron round and just soften off all the edges. It wasn't that hard, really. Just nobody really thought about it. But to start with, the first stormtrooper outfits were sharp and very, very uncomfortable to wear. Underneath it, we had one-piece suits, black. Some people had cotton suits, which were like overalls. And then we had a ribbed rubber flange, which we had to put around our necks, which made you stand like that all the time to keep your head up as well. Because if you didn't, your helmet came down and flopped down, then you couldn't see anything because the eyepieces would be here. And when they made us run around all over the place, be active, and go pew, 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 pew when we were pretending to shoot, so that they had an audible cue for the special effects to put in the shots, etc., and
right.
the sounds. It was it was very silly, very, very silly. And I got myself into trouble with George Lucas with running around on sets because he was doing second unit shoots of us in our stormtrooper outfits, running down long corridors about 100 yards long. And then there were T sections at the end, so we have to turn left, then run across, straight across, then come back, turning left back into it and run towards the camera. And then he'd say, bang, bang, bang. And then we had to go flop on the floor and all our costumes start cracking everywhere.
Wow.
When that happened, the wardrobe would come running on set with rolls of white gaffer tape, camera tape, and they would stick up the bits that had split and cracked, and we would continue. Now, this was fine, absolutely fine, until later he decided he was going to shoot some of the stuff in HD for the first time. And when that was all developed, you could see every single piece of camera tape.
Oh, no.
So then they had to go through doctoring every single cell to get rid of any signs. But you can still see it in the film. You can still spot the white camera tape all over the place. And sometimes they stuck things together wrongly, so you'd end up with two left legs, one turned wrong way round. All sorts of stupid things happened, and they're all there to be seen and found. And as far as the carbon chamber set is concerned, there were things that happened on there because of the need to rush sometimes after hanging around for hours doing nothing, where things got left on set that shouldn't be there.
Oh,
So
what
once
kind of
again,
thing?
you go through some of my pictures, you'll find that there's one picture of me standing on Darth Vader's left side. He's here, I'm there, and Jeremy Bullock is next, and then there's another stormtrooper, Ralph Morse, and they had come on to turn off some of the steam, and they brought on a monkey wrench and left it. Now, when they left it there, it was on camera, but nobody noticed it because all the steam going all over the place. And that stayed there until we finished with that set. And by the time we finished on the set, it was still there, but it was red with rust.
Wow.
It
From all
turned,
the
it
steam.
turned, yeah, it turned to rust all the way through as we watched it happen. And then we had special effects guys always had to be sort of fire monitors too. So they used to wander around with fire extinguishers. And there was one shot, it's the same lineup I've just mentioned, but in the foreground, down below, was Billy D. Williams kneeling over Han Solo in carbonite, and the Ugnaughts, etc., just off to one side. And he wanted to have a really, really tight shot looking down onto all this going on, or from the other side of the studio, looking down onto all this going on. And then all of a sudden, George decided, no, open it up, I want to see the whole scene. Too late, because the special effects guys had left the set, but left the fire extinguishers behind them.
Oh my gosh.
And they appear on the top rank of staging, up behind Darth Vader and me and Jeremy Bulloch, between two other characters, just standing there. And none of us told George. And he never noticed, so we never told him. So they appear in the film.
Probably better off, I would say.
Oh, yeah. I've got a picture of that. If I'd thought about it, I might have had them here. I could have just flashed them to you, but I don't have them here, unfortunately.
Well, we can include them after the fact, so that'll be good, too.
Oh, that's fine. I can send them to you. That's no problem.
Yeah. And, you also obviously appeared in Return of the Jedi as well,
Yes.
Imperial Officer, as you mentioned. Now,
that wasn't by on purpose. That was purely accidental.
was that the story where somebody had, they couldn't deliver the line properly, so you were brought in? Okay.
Yeah, but I wasn't brought in because of that. I was snagged as I was trying to leave the studio. I was in the studio signing my contract with another film company for a film I was going to start the next day with Glenda Jackson and John Finch in Wales.
Oh.
And so I went and signed my contract, walked out, and was just walking out of the studio, and I literally walked past the first AD who was standing outside the barn doors of the studio they were shooting that scene in the executor well. And say, oh, Alan, can you come and do me a favor? I said, not really. I said, I'm trying to get home to get in my car and then drive to Wales because I start another film tomorrow. Oh, very good, very good. What film is it? I told him. I said, oh, fine. Well, anyway, can you do us a favor? It'll only take an hour. I promise you, it'll only be an hour. I know you can do it. So I said, okay, I'll do you a favor. He said, well, we've had this actor. You know the story. They've been working with him the entire day, dressed as an Imperial officer. And he had to deliver one line to, who was it, Ken? Oh, God, names, I'm terrible. I'm in memory clinic these days. Ken. Yes, he died recently anyway. And I was supposed to deliver my lines to him, and it was a simple line, very, very fast delivery, staccato at best if possible. And it was, sir, we've lost our bridge deflector shields. That was fine. And then double it up, faster. And I got it done, and they were very happy, blah, 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 blah. And then they said, right, now we're going to do the master shot of this. We'll be right behind Ken Coley. We'll be behind Ken Coley, looking down over his shoulder at you. You will start with your back to camera, bending over. I said, it'd be difficult to bend over. The costume is too small for me. I said, it only just did up. It's creaking, literally creaking, and it's soaking wet with sweat from the guy who's been wearing it all day. So, okay, well, do your best. Bend over as much as you can, safely. And when I say action, you turn on a dime. You look straight up at the camera. It's going to be Ken Coley. His face will be right up against the lens. I said, yeah. And deliver a line really, really fast. So I said, action. As I turned around, took a deep breath, the jacket ripped up the back.
Oh.
It was like the loudest fart you've ever heard. It was terrible. And they said, cut. And they said, what's that? I said, the jacket has gone. Well, get it off him, we'll sew it up and we'll go get us. I'm sorry, I can't give you the time. I'm not employed on this film. I'm doing you a favor. So, well, wardrobe, come and sort of tack it together or whatever you can do. So we did that. I did the delivery, got the line out. Then the focus puller said that there was a hair in the gate, which is the usual term that's used when they've got it out of focus. And so it was a soft focus, and they couldn't get the line clean out of me again. The first take was fine, it was absolutely perfect. So they were going to work with that somehow, and that was all. And I was going to get out of the costume and go, and I wasn't allowed to leave. I said, no, look, don't piss around with me. I've got to get out of here. I've got to get to the train station, get back to London, get my clothes, get my car, get to Wales. I start tomorrow on a new film. Anyway, they said, no, George wants to see you. So I had to go upstairs into the production offices and see George Lucas. And he was very, very nice, and he was very trying to be chatty, which was so unlike him, it was untrue.
Yeah.
He was not renowned for his people powers. So anyway, he was saying, "Oh, I got to thank you. You've done so much to help us." And blah, 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 blah. I said, "That's all right, Mr. Lucas. That's all right. I'm very happy." He said, "Oh, well, anyway, I've written out this contract. It hasn't been typed. There hasn't been time, and I gather you're in a hurry." I said, "Contract? Well, I've got to get you to sign a contract because I need to have the rights to your appearance on film. If I can use it in the film, I've got to give you a contract." I said, "Okay." So I signed his handwritten contract, and somebody came in when he pressed the button, took it away, photocopied it, and brought me back the original, which was in green ink. Don't ask me why. So I said, "Thank you very much. I'll leave you now, and good luck with the rest of the film." He said, hold on. I've got this envelope here in this drawer. So this is for you too. I said, "I don't need anything. I was doing it as a favor." He said, No. If you appear in my films and you speak, I need to have the rights to your voice throughout the entire known universe. And that's what was in the contract. I assigned my rights throughout the entire known universe to George Lucas.
Interesting.
Yeah, seriously.
Wow.
So, and that apparently was general in his acting contracts. So I signed that. I gave it back to him. I got my copy. And as I was walking out saying, "Well, it's been really nice to meet you and speak to you again," he said, "Just one thing." He said, "Don't open that envelope until you get out in the street." And I'm going, this is just getting beyond a joke now. Okay, that's fine. He said, "Yeah, and when you do, if you look back, you'll see I'll be at this window, just behind me here. I'll be at this window and I'll be watching you." So I went down the stairs. I got this envelope in my hand thinking, am I going to get this train or not? There's a whole mile I've got to run to get to the station along a Roman straight road in Elstree to the station. And I stopped and I started to open the envelope and I looked around and there was George Lucas and there was his secretary and there were all the people in the production office whom I knew, and they were all up at the windows watching me. So I thought, so I kept on ripping and I took it out and I looked and it said, "Thank you very much for all you've done. You've done us a huge favor." And I noticed there's another piece of paper and I pulled it out and it was a handwritten check from George. And they say, people in the office, that I was seen to jump in the air and like Wile E. Coyote, I was literally cycling in the air before my feet hit the ground again, and I went zoom, straight up the street with the check in my hand. And they were apparently roaring with laughter. I did get into a bank on the way to the train station, just got on the train in time. But they held me up in the bank because they wanted to show everybody that it was a handwritten check by George Lucas. And I got away and got home and got on the car and drove, got to Wales, and I arrived, and my producer there, this wily old, not coyote, but a wily old Welsh producer, he said, "Oh, Mr. Flyng, so you've decided to come along and see us, have you?" I said, "Well, I'm sorry, I didn't think I was late. I'm not supposed to start work till tomorrow." He said, "Well, I was sort of expecting you to come and say hello to me." I said, "Well, I've just arrived, so hello. Very nice to meet you." So, "Before you go off and find your hotel, I just wanted to talk to you about something." I said, "Oh, yes." He said, "I had a phone call this afternoon." I said, "Oh, yeah?" So, yeah, I had this man on the phone with an American accent. I'm going, oh, and he was saying to me that I'd done a very good job for him at LS3 Studios on Star Wars, but there was a problem with the film and the sound, and could I let you go back to do it again tomorrow? He said his name was George Lucas, and I thought, oh, yeah, right. So I told him to fuck off and put the phone down. I said, oh, oh. I said, no, that all of that is true. He said, oh dear, I've just said fuck off to George Lucas. I said, I'm sure you're not the first. And this story then did the rounds. And I met up with the first person to come in and be fitted the next morning after arriving there, and it was Ken Coley, who'd been in the scene with me the day before.
Right.
And he said to me, in good English parlance, what the fuck are you doing here? And I looked at him and I said, what the fuck are you doing here? And that actually became something that we exchanged as a greeting for years and years and years after that, up to the stage where we were both appearing in Nuremberg in Germany at an enormous German Comic Con. And they picked me up from the hotel late. Everybody else had left. I was late. So they picked me up, and I found that I had a press pack, which is just a camera, microphone, and somebody who's just keeping notes, etc., and cable wrangling. Joined me in the car and thought, that's a bit weird. And I had this camera here. And I thought, well, it's not on. Obviously, we're just going to the... So we got out. I got out. They followed me. I was going... They stayed behind me all the time, and the camera was up on the shoulder. I thought, oh, my God, what's going on now? And walked through the double doors. Another press pack was waiting, picked me up, and followed me through the double doors until I came into the main hall. An enormous applause came out. I'm not famous. Enormous applause came out, and directly across from me in this gigantic Congress Halle, which is one they used to have the Hitler Youth parades in Germany in the Second World War.
Wow.
With Adolf Hitler. 100 yards away from me, on the other side, on top of a table, is Ken Colley. And I look at him and I go, oh, yes. He shouts top of his voice, what the fuck are you doing here? So everybody went, looked at me, cameras on me all over the place. And I said, and what the fuck are you doing here? And then it went out on evening news throughout Germany that I had arrived at the German Comic Con. I was not the main name there. All the major casts were there, and of other films too. And they transmitted it. The next day, when I was doing signings again, I had enormous queues, and everybody there, and even Ken Collins sitting next to me. He said, I had to sit next to you today. I said, why? He said, you'll see. I came in and sat down, and this enormous queue that just went on and on. It was going like a snake all over the place.
Wow.
With chains and ropes and God knows what was going on, and attendants. And now, normally they ask me for, sir, we've lost our bridge deflector shields. Fine. Hi, I'm a big fan of yours. Would you sign my photo? I want this photo with Ken Colley. I want it with you, and I want you both to sign it. And Alan, we want you to write, what the fuck are you doing here? Well, I promise you, I've signed nearly 1,000 photos that day with what the fuck are you doing here? And Ken, every time it got past me, he said, love it. I love it.
Wow.
It was just too stupid.
And we lost Ken recently, you said?
Yes, he died just a few weeks ago. Bless him. A really, really lovely man. And I'd worked with him on the Glenda Jackson film as well. So we got to know each other quite well, apart from being on film together, off film. And it was very, very sad to hear him go. But he was beloved by the fans because he was always, always kind. Never said no if somebody wanted an autograph. Apparently, he was on his bicycle, and I always thought this was a story that was to do with Cushing, who also used to ride the bicycle, and was also a very, very kind man. In fact, I'm sure it's to do with Cushing, but they've now applied it to him. So even though you might not take it to heart that this was actually Cushing, this was actually Ken Colley, but it was Cushing doing it. It's a nice story. Also, a sweet man who would never say no to a fan who wanted an autograph. Apparently, he was riding his bicycle through the town where he lived on the south coast of England, and a car nicked him and he fell off. And the guy got out of the car, came back and said, "Aren't you?" Say, Peter Cushing. He said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Can I have an autograph?" He said, "Of course you can. Would you like it in blood?" And this was the same sort of thing that happened with Ken. Ken was, they even put a bench, a special bench where he and his wife used to sit overlooking the bay where they lived in Herne Bay. And throughout the town, he was absolutely beloved. Spoke to everybody, everybody knew him. He had time for everybody. Just a sweet, sweet man.
And what advice do you have for somebody that's looking to get into the world of acting?
Well, depends on the age. Depends on the age. If you're young and your parents agree with you doing it, then it's worthwhile asking to see if you can be enrolled in an acting school or an acting course, at least. Find a drama teacher, if there's nothing like that, who can give you lessons, who can prep you for doing auditions, because audition after audition, you have to do it the whole of your acting life, which is why I left acting. So I was now established on the other side of the camera. So thank goodness I didn't have to do that. But you had to know how to audition well, learn how to learn script, how to interpret it, how to turn to camera or know stagecraft, where to stand, upstage, downstage, whatever, and what volume to use in your voice. Do that, and then if you possibly can, if you go through the stage school route and come out as, say, 18 or 19 years old, you might try and get into what the Americans call summer stock, which we don't have as such. We have companies that tour, but not summer stock as such. Or you get local provincial theatres who will set up a season, and you need to try and get into that and get in whatever the route you find your way into it. If you can get onto that stage, even if you're just handing out teas to start with, and you can get in front of an audience and be directed by a competent director with decent actors around you, and learn script, even if it's not your part you're learning. Learn everybody's script, which is what I used to do. Learn the entire script. I can't even remember my own name half the time now, as you've noticed, but learn the script so you can step in, because you'll always have to understudy. Learn that, and it's a magnificent way of becoming an actor, of learning how to get in touch with their emotions and show them without being daft, basically.
Right.
You want it to be real, so you don't want to act. You want to speak as if and deliver as if you mean what you're saying, and the situation around you is what's really happening. Yeah. But you've got to remember the stage direction. You've got to be turned this way, do that, pick this up, walk out there, don't exit through the fireplace or something stupid like that. People have done it. I've done it. And mainly because the door was locked and I couldn't get off the stage. And so it got a great applause, but it was actually a Strindberg play. It didn't belong. Learn all of that. And then, if you're lucky enough to be able to audition for proper theatre productions or for films, whatever, find yourself an agent who handles that sort of work. Yeah. And even if they say, well, you've not got the experience, I can't recommend you, just talk them into getting you into the situation, even as an understudy, even if it means you go in there with no fixed part to play. They'll, if you're any good, and if you have to stand in for somebody and you deliver lines well, they'll use you. If not that production, the next one, and then you'll be recommended further, and that's how it goes. And that's how my acting went. I just went from one film to another, to another, to another. When I wasn't looking to do that, I was booked on some films, and I'd get caught up on other films like Star Wars, and then I'd be, or Empire Strikes Back, and I'd be on that set for weeks when I was supposed to be there for 2 days.
Right.
And so I was in 3 other films at the time. I was dropped from one film. Somebody else doubled me from behind on another film. And then when I came off, they had to get a whole new unit together because I had lots of lines to deliver to camera. So I had to go in and they had to get everybody together again to do it because I needed to have people crossing before me and whom I spoke to and interacted with. And I was an absolute pain to them, I think, but it got the film finished.
Yep.
And that's the way to go. And then it's just the same thing for years and years and years. It doesn't matter how famous you get, you still have to do auditions. So it's worthwhile to pick pieces that have meaning or that allow you to emote or allow you to translate fear or harm or sadness, exuberance, hysteria without acting. You don't ever act, especially not to a camera. If you act to a camera, they say, oh, we don't want him. Oh my God, he's a terrible actor.
You got to believe
nothing to the imagination.
Right.
So that's how it works, for me at least.
And one of my personal favorites, Santa Claus the movie, 1985. What was your involvement in that?
Once again, I was brought in to organize. And I was supposed to organize the fact that we had 112 dwarves.
Wow.
Who were all under 4'9", because that's how tall Dudley Moore was. Because he had a club foot and one leg shorter than the other. Nobody knew it at the time. He managed to keep it well covered up. And so I came in and I was involved with all the fittings with all these people, met the rest of the cast, and I was helping with all their fittings because everything was being made, literally everything, because it was so stylized, even down to the elves' striped stockings that had to coordinate color-wise with the colors that were in their outfits, which were multicolor sponged, dyed wool, and really uncomfortable. And Dudley Moore had to be fitted, and Dudley was quite uncertain about doing it because he didn't want to draw attention to his leg, and he had to wear stocking from the knee down, which would be on show. So I said, well, I've worked on a film with somebody else who needed built-up shoes, but I mean professionally built-up shoes, so they weren't just little orthotic implants you put inside the shoe. These are actually, the shoes are built, and they look exactly the same as the others, and nobody could tell the difference at all. All right. So would you like me to arrange for that? I'll have a word with the supervisor. He said, yeah, that'd be great. So that all happened. And all of a sudden, Dudley said, are you staying on this production? I said, well, no, I was only here to try and get everything organized. He said, well, now you've done that, can you stay with me? I said, as what? He said, my personal assistant. I said,
wow.
Well, there's another 5 months to go on this in Pinewood Studios, and it was an enormous undertaking, this film. The stages were knocked together to make giant stages for flying sleighs and reindeer and all the rest of it. And rooftops, you name it, it was all built, and it was amazing. So I had a word with them. I said, he's asked me to stay if he's allowed to ask me to stay. And if I were to say yes, how do you feel about it? He said, well, as long as you can help us out occasionally with Santa, because his costume was enormous. So yeah, I can help you with Santa. And the king of the dwarves is going to be a bit of a problem. I thought, oh, here we go. What sort of problem? I can't remember the name of the actor. You'll have to look him up. Exceedingly famous. Exceedingly famous. And he had a beard that was bifurcated, split in two, and went behind him and would. He had like bridesmaids would with a bride carrying his beard and his moustaches. It went right back through the studio. They were so long. And he had all this outfit on as well. And the trouble was that he was so old, bless him, Burgess Meredith. And he was incontinent. So every once in a while, everything had to stop while they'd take his beard and his moustaches off. And I would have to take him to the loo and change him and wash him and bring him back again in another costume. So he had lots and lots of doubles for this costume. And we'd just get him back and he'd start walking and he'd pee himself again, bless him. So I'd do all that, and it was just so funny. John Lithgow, who was playing the baddie in the film, he said, "Oh God, he's done it again." I said, "It comes to all of us, John." He said, "It's never going to happen to me." I said, "Don't say that. You just don't know, do you?" "Oh, well, yeah, I suppose." I said, "Well, yes, it happens to all of us." And besides which, he's a very renowned actor, a very, very great actor. Okay, I apologize. I said, "Don't apologize to me. Yeah, if he hears about it, he'll probably just go, so what?" I said, "You just got to be careful what you say, because everybody else around here, you've got 200 people on this set listening to what you're saying, because you're not talking quietly. you're an
Right.
you're an actor." "Oh, okay. So I feel I've been told off." I said, "Yeah, well, I hope I did it nicely." So that's me again, teaching. And we got the film finished. And halfway through the film, it transpired that Dad had to leave the film for a weekend because of tax. So he had to get out of Britain for a weekend and come back. He said, "I don't know what to do with myself." I said, "Well, I'm going with a girlfriend of mine to Paris." He said, "Oh, I haven't been to Paris for years." I said, "Well, come with us." So we went over to Paris and we did a bit of wandering around and ate in restaurants, and the press were all there. And this girlfriend of mine was all, "Ooh." I said, "Don't worry, it's not for you." And we came back and he said, "That was great. Do you know, that was the first time I've been on a film where I've actually taken a weekend and been a normal person." I said, "Yes, with about 50 people following you with cameras." He said, "Oh, I don't take any notice of them." I said, "Well, it was really lovely to be with you." And we did that again when we finished the film. And at that stage, he was already feeling a little bit mortal. And so he rewrote his will and had the sisters deliver it into the studio. And myself and his makeup artist witnessed his will, his last will, which was quite something.
Wow. Jeez.
Quite something. So we did get to know each other really, really well,
What a
which
moment
was
to
a
be part
huge
of.
bonus. Hmm?
Yeah, what a moment to be a part of. That's a
Well,
very
it wasn't
prideful.
something I expected. It's just that I literally spent every single hour of the day with him.
Yeah.
If he wasn't on set, he insisted I'd be in his changing rooms, his dressing room, which were 3 dressing rooms knocked into one for him, with a grand piano and a film setup and video replay equipment, professional equipment. And he was trying to get hold of his old show reels from when he worked with Peter Cook, and they had a TV series, which was hysterically funny. But some of them just had disappeared, and he was trying to get hold of Peter Cook, and for some unknown reason, Peter Cook felt that Dad had let him down by going on to doing films and left him behind which is not true at all. He was just very fragile personality. And Dad was constantly trying to phone him and speak to him from his dressing room, and Pete just wouldn't pick up the phone, refused to pick up the phone. So I went round to Pete's house, knocked on the door, spoke to his housekeeper. He said, "Oh, he knows he's phoning. He knows he's phoning because he sees the telephone number. So he knows it's coming from Power Studios. So he won't speak to him." And they never, ever spoke together again.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Very, very sad.
That's too bad.
Yeah. So he lived with that, which was a bit of a tragedy for him. And he befriended so many people who thought so much of him. Bo Derek, for instance. I worked with Bo Derek on, what the hell was it now? Dreadful film. Set in the 20s, up in the Spanish mountains. I'll remember. It will come back to me. And her husband, who was an absolute pig, and of course Dad had worked with them as well. They'd done 10 together. And she was really maltreated by her husband. He was a pig of a man. He used to slap her around and just treat her as a bit of cargo, basically. When I arrived, it was to redesign all her costumes, because he stopped the production, sacked his designer, and I came out, and I was literally up a mountain outside of Santander in northern Spain, looking at all these costumes on a rail, and he had her come up and take her clothes off. Now, the production office where this happened wasn't his office, it was the production's office. So there were riggers and journeymen walking through, clerks, camera people.
Wow.
So she was kept standing there naked to be shown to me. They're saying, "You can see what her problem is, her tits are too big, slap. Her ass is too big, slap. And she's got red welts on her. And her skin was so thin. He made her diet, this diet that he gave to all his ex-wives, to get them as thin as possible, so that their skin was like parchment thin. You could see every tiny vein throughout her chest. You could see it, and so she had to be completely made up. And she was always being in the nude or half nude in most of the film. And anyway, in the end of it, in the middle of my session on the film, I said, "This is just too much. I can't be doing this anymore." I remember I was in a hotel. It was off-season hotel in northern Spain, and I had a phone call from the production office. Now, I had my sewing machine there. They brought me a treadle machine, and I was supposed to be sewing silk costumes for her.
Okay.
You don't do silk on a treadle machine.
Right, that's not going to work.
No. So I had an ordinary electric machine with no electricity because it's off season. So I was doing the old, let's turn it on and do this, and lots of hand sewing. And I had to stop because there was a call that came through, and he wanted me on the top of the mountain. There was a problem with Bo's costume. So I told the production to get hold of a taxi, get me up to the top of the mountain on the taxi, and see if I could sort it out. And then I'd travel back down in the taxi, and the production would get the bill if that was okay. He said, "Yeah, that's fine." So I traveled all the way up this bloody mountain on goat tracks in a taxi where the driver was literally screaming as if he was shitting himself all the time. I'm sure he was. I wasn't feeling much better myself. I got to the top, and they were having a stand-up row in front of the cast in the scene, and all of the extras and all the people in the village who'd come out to watch. So it was like a circus going on, and I got out of the car feeling quite bilious. He said, "Get over here. What took you so fucking long?" So here as quickly as I could. He said, "You see this?" She had a little 1930s. Now, you've got to use your imagination here. She had a little 1930s short sleeve knitted top, very, very tight, and it came to just middle of the abdomen. You know, the sort of thing, very cutesy, very college-like. And he said, "It's this, it's not this. What's going on here? What's going on here? It's all ruched up. It looks horrible. It looks horrible." I said, "Oh, so that's the problem, is it?" He said, "Yes, that's the problem." I said, "Hold on a minute." And I spoke to the girl who was standing by on set, who was Spanish and didn't speak English. And I asked her for a pair of scissors. She gave me her scissors. I said, "Just excuse me, sir, out of the way." And I just parted the thing. I went snip, and there was a draw thread along the top here that was all gathered onto. And it was only that one piece of thread that was holding it all together. And I did it on the other side there. It went, "Is that better? Are you fucking having a joke with me? Is this all it took to get this thing going? Oh, you're no good," and shouting at the Spanish crew. I said, "They wouldn't know that they were allowed to cut up the costume." He said, "It's a pity we didn't talk about this when we fitted it, isn't it? And you took photos of her in it and thought it was lovely." He said, "Don't you talk to me like that." I said, "Well, I think the best thing that I can do now is really go back down the mountain." He said, "Yeah, I agree. Just fuck off." So I got in that taxi again. This time we did not drive at hair-raising speeds. We got down to the hotel, and I told the taxi driver, just wait here a while. And I went in, I saw the production manager and the production secretary, and I said, "Well, I would give you the bill from the taxi, but I've got it, and he's outside with his engine running, because I'm just going to go upstairs and get my bags." I said, "What?" I said, "I'm going home." I told him I was going to go down the mountain. He said, "Yeah," and told me to fuck off. So I'm going to fuck off if you don't mind. And I did. And then I got back into this. I got back into this taxi, and we were, I don't know, maybe 60 miles from the nearest airport. And I said, "To l'aeropuerto." Okay? I said, "L'aeropuerto, por favor." See? I said, "Yes. Yes." And then you come back and you go up the mountain to get paid from that man who shouts in my worst Spanish. He said, "See?" I said, "Yeah. Yes." And that's what I did.
Oh,
And I turned out it didn't quite finish there. At the end of that time stories, I then arrived back in London, and there was a phone call from a dear old friend of mine, another designer, and she was doing an enormous commercial for television. And it was enormous. It had a whole circus in it inside Shepperton Studios. And she really needed some help. I said, "Okay, I'll come down, don't you worry." And I went down. This is the day after I arrived back. And we were shooting there for 2 weeks. It was huge. And just going into the second week, the studio manager, who I knew very well, came in with Mr. Bo Derek. I will call him that now. He's dead. And he came and started shouting. He said, "There's that fucker. There's that fucker. He fucked up my production. He stopped my production." I said, "I beg your pardon." I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I had to come and find somewhere else to shoot because you fucked us up. You shafted us." I said, "No. It's your own mouth that got you into trouble. And this is a production I'm working on for these lovely producers and this director. And we are making a commercial, and we have this space, so you couldn't have it even if you wanted it."
yeah.
And I said to the studio manager, a lovely camp old man who I'd known for years and years and years, always very helpful. I said, "Would you do me a huge favor?" He said, "Yeah, sure. What can I do?" I said, "Take this bozo out to the front gate and throw him out. He's stopping us producing, and we're paying for this space. We're paying you for this space. So would you throw him off the set, off the lot completely?" And he did. He frog marched him out and threw him out through the main gate. And everybody on our stage was going, "Yeah, yeah, wonderful, yeah." made our day.
Got what was coming to him. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, sometimes I'm a bit gobby myself.
What a great story, though. You have so many great stories throughout your career. In closing, fast forward many years from now, what would you want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered?
Really, it doesn't really worry me, to be honest. I mean, what I've done, I mean, most of my acting has been on stage or even in cabaret or cabaret theatre. I've done a lot of that, produced it and directed it and acted in it for years. I don't know. I'm within the business. I'm reasonably well known. Outside of the business, I'm known as a stormtrooper. Never mind all the other films I've been in, or the other films that I was in production with as a designer or as a supervisor. Some of which have won Oscars, which I've shared with other designers when we've been teams. Um, Golden Globes, all of them. We've won all of those awards. My name gets written in the citations, and that's good. That's good for me. It doesn't matter. There are some pictures of me holding on to these stupid bits of chunks of metal, gilded chunks of metal. But it doesn't really mean that much to me, to be honest. It's the people I've worked with and the experiences I've had and specific actors with whom I really gelled, I really got on. These are the things that really I remember, and I don't expect anybody else to remember, except from perhaps interviews like this. And as you say, I've got a lot to say. I could go on for hours if you don't want to do that.
No, it's been a pleasure. And, I want to first and foremost thank you for your contributions. I mean, it hasn't gone unnoticed, and you've done so much, and you've been a part of so much on so many different levels. So I want to thank you for that, and you've
That's
really done
pure
a lot
luck.
for business.
That's pure luck. I've been very, very lucky. And in this business, what I should also say to would-be actors, you're only as good as the last job you did. People will hear of you because you're in a job, and they'll come and see what you've done. And that's how you get another job. It doesn't matter if you're going in as the principal lead or you're going in as an extra who carries a tray and doesn't drop the glasses. People hear and you get offered more work. So be professional. Be professional and always, always be honest to a fault.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Alan, thank you so much for joining us. It's been our pleasure.
Well, it's
For
been a
Alan
pleasure to
Flyng,
speak to you.
what's that?
It's been a huge pleasure to talk to you too.
Oh, thank you so much. I do appreciate it, and thank you for taking the time out of your schedule for Alan Flyng. I am Joseph Bruen, and this has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. It's Sci-Fi Week, and this has been a big part of it. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and we will see you all next time.